So, a good friend of mine at work has been hounding me to make this particular video. So, here it is. And if he doesn't watch it, I'm going to be very upset at him. But that's neither here nor there. So, we talk politics all the time. And to get an idea of who I am before we go any further into this, I am socially middle stream or centrist. I don't care what two grown people do in the privacy of their own room. Fiscally, I'm very much a Republican. I believe that we need small government. I believe that states should be regulating their own affairs for the betterment of their own people, not businesses. But at the same time, there also has to be a balance. And I understand that. And unfortunately, in today's society, we don't have that balance anymore. It's the extremes on both sides that's killing this country, and nobody seems to want to accept that because that is bad ideology. You have to be part of a team. Well, I mean, if you think about it, here's a great analogy. Everybody's a fan of any given football team, but everybody enjoys football. They just, in politics, unfortunately, we can't just enjoy the fact that we are all Americans. We have to be either Republicans or Democrats. But the truth is there's a lot of people that fit in between all of that. So I put my vote towards who's going to do the best for the country. And unfortunately, there's a lot of boxes to check. Not every candidate checks every box. And if you say your candidate hits every box, well, then you're not being honest to yourself. Because no matter who's in the White House, they're not perfect. They never were. They never will be. And to be honest, if you think they are, if you can't accept they've made mistakes, you're part of the problem. And that's a huge issue that a lot of Americans don't want to accept. That they are afraid to criticize their own person. And if they don't fix that, we're never going to move out of this rut of one crappy politician for the next crappy politician. Because honestly, a lot of good ones slip through the cracks. Last election, I was hugely in favor of Nikki Haley. I really wanted her to run. But because she wasn't on one side of the extreme or the other, that's what we were stuck with. And I get it. A lot of people want to give the Democrats a bunch of heck because the Democrats pulled Joe Biden. Well, I don't understand. Because you get all these Republicans and MAGA people, because MAGA is not the same as Republicans. Let's make that clear. You get all these Republicans and MAGA hating on Biden for being mentally deficient because of his age, but then when the Democrats realize this and they pull him and they put who they want up there, now it's a big problem because they didn't run a primary. Americans don't understand. Parties don't have to run a primary. The primaries belong to the parties themselves. That's why the primary system is the way it is. The parties regulate them. The states, the federal government, they have no control over who the party represent or sends up to represent them in the national election. That's part of the problem. You think your voice matters? It really doesn't. But we're not going to fix that in this video. I'm just touching on a lot of things that I see as problems in our political system. And it's never going to be addressed, let alone fixed, if people can't start being honest with themselves. If people can't start understanding who it is that they need to start voting for. And it's not going to be the guy who they believe checks all the marks. Pay attention. Do your own homework. Stop listening to these influencers on YouTube and TikTok and whoever, because let me tell you something. They're bought and paid for, every last one of them. I know people don't want to acknowledge the Mueller report as factual, but if you take the time to read it, you take the time to study it, and you look at what they put forward as evidence, it is pretty factual. The Russians, the Chinese, all kinds of other people are involved in our political system through these influencers. And the media, the social media companies, they're not going to change it. So don't expect them to do the right thing. They're out for that money. And they get paid a lot of money to get you to make a mouse click. So until we start talking about what's really killing our political system in our country, we're not ever going to fix it. And we're going to be trapped in this same cycle of stupidity year after year after year after year. The electorate needs to change. At one point in time, I remember my mother used to have Baptist ladies, what was it? It was Baptist ladies for Reagan, all through the 80s. Every Sunday after church, they would come to our house and they would sit there and they would talk. And they would fellowship. Every Sunday. My mom taught me to look beyond what you see and dig and find your own truths. And look, sometimes the truth, we don't like it, but we have to accept it. And we got to stop beating around the bush and making excuses because we don't want to accept the truth. Like, a lot of y'all out there voted for a man who swore up and down he'd release the Epstein files. And it literally took an act of Congress to get him to do that. And even still, they're breaking the law. It should tell you something when both Democrats and Republicans get together and pass a veto-proof bill to force this guy to do something he promised to you on the campaign trail. That should tell you something. But I'm not here to beat up any particular politician in this video. This is kind of a video requested by a good friend of mine. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here, let my wife go ahead and edit, and then we'll see how this does.